next thing you know, banking from the left, coming across me, left to right. And I pull up, saying shoot, 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 and thinking I have a good lead. Feel like my bead is on that bill, and shoot all three and just see all three of my wads just go completely past the bird. And I was like, oh my gosh. And yeah, that's when I really realized, like, these birds fly up much faster than you realize.
Welcome to the Foul Front Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, where our goal is to recruit and educate new hunters while entertaining the rest of you. Without new hunters and the mentorship of those more seasoned, this passion as we know it faces an uncertain future. So get the word out, turn the volume up, and enjoy the show, because you're on the Foul Front. All right, welcome back to the Foul Front Waterfowl Podcast, powered by the Waypoint Podcast Collective. This episode is brought to you by HTR Innovations, FreelanceHuntStats.com, DocsOutdoorSupplies.com, and Megan Lupian Photography. All right, so today on the show we've got Nick Derbidge, and now these are some of my favorite episodes when somebody on like the Facebook group says, "Hey man, you should do an episode on this," and then we follow it up with them. And so, Nick, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, Ben. How about you?
Yeah. When did you post about? You said, I think you said, "Hey man, you should do an episode on swan hunting."
Yeah, that's right. It's probably been about a week, I think, maybe.
Yeah. And you're like, "Hey, there's something to it," and I never really have thought too much about swan hunting. In fact, there's me and my group of buddies. There's a joke about, because one of our friends back in the day when he was first learning he shot a swan, so we always kind of make fun of that. He got prosecuted. Don't worry, it's not like there's going to be an investigation or anything like that. But he already got his fine, paid his ticket. So, but yeah. So what got you into swan hunting?
So, I just remember I was out hunting on my own and just see this group of swans coming over, probably I think about 8 of them. And next thing I know, I hear bang, bang, and just this big old white bird coming down, and see this guy jumping up and down, hooting and hollering, and, just got talking to him. And he was like, "Oh yeah, you can hunt these birds. They have us targeting the tundra swans, and they're just really great fun." And ever since then, I proceeded to put in for the lottery draw to draw a tag and draw one, and went out and shot one, and it hooked me. It's one of the best hunts I can think of for waterfowl. It's just such a fun hunt. You're only allowed one bird, so you got to work hard for it. But
one bird a season.
So one bird. So basically, you put in for this lottery system, kind of like you would. I don't know how it is in Kansas, but like. When you enter for like deer tags and stuff, you get that one tag and you can get one buck. But with swans, it's usually if you draw, you get the one, and then the next season you don't draw out because you drew out last season, and then the season after that you will more than likely draw a tag again.
Okay, so you can plan on basically swan hunting every other year is what you're telling me.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, basically.
And now, where are you out of?
So I'm out of the Salt Lake City Valley area. So here in Utah.
Yeah. What's the duck hunting like up there?
So I think Utah kind of gets, glassed over just because, it's Utah. I think a lot of people just think as a state, probably not a whole lot to do besides, visiting national parks and then big game hunting. Cause we've all seen those outdoor channel shows with guys coming out and hunting elk or mule deer out here on some of our awesome units. But waterfowl is really wonderful here. Like the Great Salt Lake is a big stop for waterfowl during the migration.
I would imagine so.
It's very we always are doing what we can to manage our WMAs, our waterfowl management areas. And, we also manage our federal wildlife service areas, the Bear River and Fish Springs. Those are the 2 big ones that the feds are over. And just, you really can shoot any type of duck here. Like we have canvasbacks, pintails, mallards, shovelers. There was a guy this past season, I can't believe it. He shot a long-tailed duck, a sea duck.
Really?
Yeah, so we occasionally get some.
I was just gonna ask you. I'm sure you get your fair share of divers down there on the lake, but do you also get any sea ducks? Well, it sounds like you do.
Yeah, every now and then we do. Well, so I help manage a waterfowl page here in Utah on Facebook, and
what's the page?
it's always it's the Utah Waterfowl Association.
Okay, cool.
And the group has just helped kind of meet others, possibly go hunt with others, but also we also work on passing legislature that will help preserve waterfowl hunting here in Utah.
Oh, excellent.
But yeah, I mean, I think somebody shot a black scooter this past season as well. And so, yeah, we see every now and then a couple. I think this season I saw 10 or so sea ducks that got shot here, and it's always crazy to see.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like, how'd you get over here?
Yeah, it's just like you just realize, wow, that bird is way far from its normal flight, probably. So.
Right. So, okay, tell me about your first swan hunt. Then, kind of told us. So you're sitting out there in the marsh, and you see this big, 737 like creature get harvested by a guy. And what happens then?
So then, I didn't draw my first year, which generally happens. Occasionally you get lucky. And then my second year applying, I drew. I went out, got out there about 10, 11 o'clock in the day. For whatever reason, swans for whatever reason, they like to fly a lot better in the evening. Not saying you can't get them in the morning, but from my experience, the evenings have always been better. Get out there waiting. First group we come in, it's 2 good sized tundra swans, good 2 adults, and just whiff it on the shot. Like, people think shooting ducks is hard. Shoot a swan. People don't realize those birds get up to 80, 90 miles per hour top speed. And like, they're such a big bird, you don't realize how fast they're going. And if you do not put the lead on them, you are not going to bring them down. You could hit them in the body and they'll still fly. Like,
really?
And they're not going to. Yeah, they are a tough bird.
What do you throw? What kind of ammo do you use for them?
So you're going to use still my the swans I've taken. I've always used 3.5 2-shot.
Okay.
But I know guys that have taken them with 20 gauges, and just use 2-shot, and just use the 3-inch shells, or 12 gauge 3-inch shells and double BB. It's just, most people will recommend, and I'm kind of on that same boat, where shoot the load you are comfortable shooting and that you can accurately shoot.
Sure. And I think that's funny that you mentioned it, that, everybody thinks that teal the teal are the fastest ducks. Well, they're probably just the most agile ducks. But when it comes to speed, the bigger the bird, the more speed they get going. So, when these 2 birds are, ripping past you, how fast are they going? Well, paint the picture for me.
So, we're just sitting here in the boat, it's getting close to sunset, I think it's around 4 p.m., maybe a little bit before.
And you're hunting them on water?
Yep. Yeah, you're going to hunt swans on water. I don't think I've heard of anybody getting one in the field, like in a cornfield or anything. I've always seen them on water. So,
sure.
They just, you just get told, all right, put your head down, you start looking up, you're keeping your eyes underneath the brim of your hat, but you're just looking up, trying to see them come over, because swans, just like other ducks, have really good eyesight, and they're not, hunted a lot, so there isn't a ton of pressure on them. They do get a lot of pressure once the season starts going and people start knocking them down, but they are very specific about where they want to go. But you just hear them. It's kind of funny with just hear them whooping. So they're very vocal when they're flying in. So you're just waiting for them. Next thing you know, banking from the left, coming across me, left to right, and I pull up, saying shoot, 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 and thinking I have a good lead, feel like my bead is on that bill, and shoot all three and just see all three of my wads just go completely past the bird.
Oh,
And I was
man.
like, oh my gosh. And yeah, that's when I really realized like these birds fly much faster than you realize.
Yeah, yeah. And now you said that you're hunting tundra swans, right? That's the
Yeah.
only type of swans we really hunt here in North America.
So in all 8 states, those are the ones they technically want you to target. Now, the Federal Wildlife Service has allowed Utah and Nevada, because we do not get a very big trumpeter swan migration through our area, that if you do shoot a trumpeter, you're not going to be fined or anything, but it does fill your tag.
Okay.
They want you to target tundras, but if you shoot a trumpeter, it's not like, oh man, I'm going to get a fine. I'm going to maybe go to jail or something. And so we did have a guy this last season shot a monster trumpeter. So I don't know if you know two different from tundra and trumpeters. The way you can tell.
Yeah, my parents have they have a trumpeter swan on their lake that they live on. And I'm looking at a picture between a trumpeter swan and a tundra swan right now. But go ahead. What's the difference?
So size is going to be the big one. Tundras, they get to about 16, 20 pounds, like as an adult.
Okay.
And they get a 6-foot wingspan. And then they'll have a yellow lure, is what we call it, under their eye. So at the base of their bill, basically, they'll have like a yellow lure. It kind of looks just like a birthmark.
Sure, I see it.
And then a trumpeter, I mean, even if you see like a juvenile trumpeter, it's going to look huge next to a tundra adult swan.
Yeah, I think that swan that lives on my parents, the lake that they live on, I would guess that thing weighs 40 or 50 pounds.
Yeah, so those trumpeters, I believe, can get up to 30 pounds. They usually are, I think, a little bit more over 20 most of the time.
Okay.
And they have very big, blocky, black bills.
Yeah.
And so just if you see, like if you do a Google image tundra versus trumpeter, you can see like how giant those trumpeters are compared to a tundra. Like they are almost double in size.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this thing, maybe it's a little bit bigger because it eats like dog food. So, perhaps that's why it's so much bigger.
And then another way, like at least hearing wise, a trumpeter, it's going to sound like a trumpet when it calls. Like, and I know that sounds silly, but it does sound very close to a trumpet. Where a tundra, like I kid you not, this method works all the time when calling in tundras. It's going woo woo, like just literally doing that. And like
I was going to ask you to call in I was going to ask you to call one in for us.
Yeah, like
that you don't even need a call. You just say woo.
Yeah, you really could go woo woo, like, and they will come. Like if you ever look up tundra audio, that's literally what it sounds like they're doing. Like they do some other sounds, like they'll go like ooh, like a weird like rolling. I can't do it very well.
Like
a
Yeti or a Chewbacca.
Kind of, but it's like a little bit more high pitched and stuff, and not so growly, but very similar.
Like
I
a
can't
baby
do it
Yeti
well.
or something. Like that. Like
yeah, kind of like that. It's
some amazing journalism going on right now.
If you ever can, if you look up tundra swan hunts or just swan hunts, you'll hear the guys, and most of them are just going woo woo, like just whooping, and it sounds super funny and dumb, but you would not believe how often that works. And I'm not saying it'll work every time, but it does work.
Do they sell calls for these?
I believe they do. I think there's a company out in North Carolina that does, because out there tundra swan hunting is pretty big. That state gives out the most tags in the North America, so they give out 5,000 tags. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I guess what's the population size of the tundra swan in North America, or do you happen to know that?
I do not off the top of my head. I do believe it's a couple 100,000. I mean, it could just be quite a bit over 100,000, but I do know that coming into Utah, we see about 40,000
Okay.
tundra swans migrate through here.
That's
more
than I thought.
Yeah,
sure.
it's kind of a condition for states that have swan hunting. They have to have a significant amount of swans migrating through the area.
Yeah.
And there's, just like with any waterfowl, there's only so much habitat for, these populations. And, part of conservation effort to preserve, to continue hunting, ducks and swans and geese, hunting is utilized to help manage those numbers so that we will have that habitat still available for them.
So now it's Alaska, Utah, North Carolina. There's 5 more states, right?
Yeah. So you got Alaska, Eastern Montana, Utah, Nevada, North and South Dakota, Virginia, and North Carolina.
Okay. So
and
when you're scouting,
sorry, go ahead.
No, when you're scouting for these things, what's that look like?
So it's very similar to the way you're gonna scout for ducks. You're gonna get on your pedal bike or just the 2 legs you were born with and walk around. I mean, obviously you can scout with your boat, but a lot of the swans here in Utah, and I think for a lot of the states where you can, you're gonna shoot them, pass shoot, just because it's usually easier to get them while they're trafficking, or traveling.
Sure.
So you just want to find where their path is, like where they're consistently going, roosting to feeding, resting to eating. If you can get in there and, you set up a decoy spread, you can at least get a couple to come check you out.
Okay. Now, I want to stop you real quick. Something.
Yeah, you're good.
Did you just say your pedal bike?
Yeah. So here in Utah, we're on our WMAs, we have dike systems because these WMAs, most of them at least, are impoundments off the Great Salt Lake. So they're fresh water, and then they eventually meet the salt water. Mm-hmm. So we have these dikes where we're allowed to walk or we're allowed to ride our bikes on. It just can't be e-bikes, but there is possibly that rule changing. Are you talking about those? What
are those bikes called?
Like Rambos?
Rambos, yeah.
Yeah, so there is talk that at least the state-owned ones will eventually change or allow those. But that's still kind of up in the air. I haven't heard anything change on that. But
so you ride these bikes along the levees. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, basically. And, you just stop, pull out your binoculars and glass, see where you're seeing large numbers of ducks or swans settling and resting. And, sometimes those days you want to go hunt just turn into scouting days, plan for a better hunt later on.
Sure. Now, is this something that, like this is a cultural thing? A lot of people are doing this?
Yeah, a lot of people, it's either they're walking those or they're riding bikes on those. And that's just kind of, people are just wanting to get around and see as much of the area as possible before, they decide hunting somewhere.
Of course. I used to ride my bike when I was jump shooting playas down in the, or playas, excuse me, not playas, down in New Mexico. So.
Oh, okay.
I just thought that was interesting. So.
Yeah. If you're going to you definitely want those airless tires,
Yeah.
You're off-roading basically.
For sure. Okay, so you've covered a little bit about the calling, and there might be like one or two companies that make calls. For swans. What about decoys? I know that there are swan decoys, but tell me a little bit about your spread for swans.
So if you have the cash money, because usually when you're buying decoys for swans, you get 2, and it's like $55 for just 2.
For 2 of them.
So you're talking $25 a piece, and then that's not without, that's not with the weights and stuff. So you can do it that way, which nothing's wrong with that. I do have a couple swan decoys I throw out. Another way of doing it is some guys will cut plastic or, kind of like dive bomb silhouettes, they'll use something like that and just have it all white, and they'll have them like stapled to wood stakes and just stake them out there in the water.
Okay.
Some guys use white trash bags. They'll tie white trash bags to stakes or just tie white trash bags with a weight to it so, it doesn't leave where they want it and just leave it on the water. And that can be enough to get swans to come in and look. They may not, land in or decoy perfectly, but it's enough to get them to come look at it.
Sure. Okay, so that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And now I don't imagine that like a floating goose decoy, you couldn't just paint that white and it would be good to go. It's just too small.
So actually that works too. Like even just geese decoys, you don't even have to paint them. Those will work.
Okay. So yeah, you can pull them in.
Oh yeah, you can still pull in. I mean, you definitely want to add some type of big white to your spread because swans will come into like geese decoys and duck decoys, but you generally do still want some big white in your spread because if you kind of look at swans and stuff, you will see like puddle ducks hanging out with them. You'll see geese kind of by them and stuff. I mean, generally they're not way close, there's still that spacing between them, but they're still kind of by each other.
Sure. I imagine most of the market for, swan decoys is in the confidence decoy. I would imagine, just because.
Yeah, that's where I generally see them. I know Tangle Free, they put theirs in their specialty, I think category.
Yeah.
And they're the only ones I really know that make a floating swan decoy where they have flock heads. So something we've kind of seen is that, swans will still come and check out decoys like that. But if you can pull the flock head, because if you observe swans, a lot of them spend their time with their heads in the water, getting food and stuff. And we've kind of seen if you pull those flock heads off and just leave the body there, like that works really well.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, the only reason I know that there are swan decoys, because I've never, specifically looked for them, was that there was a public lake that we hunted in Oklahoma, and I just remember seeing like there was this big blind on the other side of the lake. There's so much white over there. What the heck is that? So we like tooled over there once and like just seen that they had these ginormous pterodactyl decoys, and yeah, I just thought that was interesting. Then I went and looked up online, and yeah, sure enough, they sell them. So
yeah, and I do know some guys like they don't swan hunt, but they do use swan decoys as confidence decoys, and you definitely can use them for that way too.
Sure. So now, what kind of groups do the swans like? Do they flock up, or do they kind of like pair off?
So you definitely can. So we usually call them families.
Okay.
When we see them, because there's generally about like you usually want those smaller families to come in your decoys. It's really hard to convince 20 big white birds to come and check out your decoys. Usually you're going to pill probably I would say about 8, maybe a little bit more of them to come. Usually if you can find one of those groups, you can usually always get them to pull in and check you out.
So you're really looking at like 8 and below.
Yeah. And even sometimes just the 2 can be really hard. They're almost even more wary, where the larger numbers, it's like, oh, we're in such a large group. If, we don't start seeing them peel off to look out, we're just going to keep going with them.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, do geese, do they mate for life, or are they seasonal maters, or do you know?
So swans, a lot of people think, you're fine. I knew what you meant. So swans, a lot of people think, they'll mate for life, which they will. But say one of them dies, it's not like they're going to stop breeding or, stop trying to survive. And
of course, breeding
is a big part of that survival. So they will, find another potential partner to keep procreating. And, they've observed swans having affairs, so they've seen them mating with other ones that they technically, weren't mated with for life. So that is kind of like a myth, a lot of people will say the same thing. Like I've heard people say, don't geese mate for life? And it's like, no, they really don't. And swans, it's the same thing. And I think that's kind of why a lot of people, swan hunting has this black eye, I would say, to some people, where it's like, how could you hunt a bird that mates for life? And it's like, well, that's not necessarily true.
Right. And then the other thing too is I think another stigma probably that a swan hunter faces is like, I mean, these things are huge. Like, and I always think like it's a lot easier to like sell off like oh yeah, I'm a squirrel hunter. Okay, cool. But like the bigger the animal, the more you have to defend yourself to a non-hunter or something of that nature. But let's talk for a minute about the size of these things. You said 6-foot wingspan. That's like,
Yep.
That's almost like 30% bigger than like a regular greater Canada goose, right?
Yeah, I believe that would probably be a good estimate. Yeah, I mean, most of your adult tundra swans are going to be, if you get a good one, they're going to have a 6-foot wingspan, and their bills are going to measure between about 50 to 65 millimeters.
Jeez, okay. And then how long are their necks? Like that's the thing that gets me. Like,
so their necks, it's crazy how, I mean, I would say their necks are probably about 30%, maybe more of what their body actually is, compared to their body. And like this one I got, my big adult one, I think was probably about 20 inches, maybe a little bit more than that. I didn't measure it. I'm just kind of going off the top of my head, but sure. I mean, yeah, their necks are long. I mean, people think, sometimes you have that question of like, oh, is that a goose? Is that a duck? Depending on how far away they are. But it's like, if you've ever hunted swans or you've at least seen swans out hunting, you're like, you can nail that sucker and be like, oh yeah, that's a swan just because its neck is so long.
Yeah. I mean, pretty unmistakable, I would say. Getting back to my buddy, who back in the day and already got ticketed and fined. So if there's anybody listening to try to issue a ticket, when he shot a swan, he was the talk of the county. Actually, probably the talk of the state. I remember my other buddy. I wasn't there. I didn't know the kid then, but I have another friend that knew him pretty well, and it was definitely, I guess, a big kerfuffle for him. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can't imagine because we already know shooting migratory birds out of season, or because at least here in Utah we do have certain species where the season closes before the actual waterfowl season closes.
Oh really? For
yeah.
So like what?
So scaup. So
okay,
scaup,
yeah,
their season closes before, and then swans, their season closes before our duck season closes.
Oh yeah, sure. So tell me a little bit about what's best, early or late season for the swans?
So the peak, at least here in Utah, peak swan hunting is going to be your second week of November to about the first week of December.
Okay. Any particular reason for that, or?
So that's just back when the state was obligated to, or told to by the FWS, to do aerial surveys. They used to have to do yearly aerial surveys, and now they no longer have to because the state has proven that the numbers are consistent year to year. There isn't a big enough variable to say for them to continue doing it because of funding reasons.
Sure.
But that's just what they've tracked when doing aerial surveys, that between November between that second week November to that first week December is always when they see the peak of swans.
With it being so consistent like that, or at least the way you make it sounds like that they're not then they're like photo driven with their migration patterns. Yeah,
I mean, it's just we always kind of know when they're coming, and we always just because of that data they've collected over the years from 95 to, I think, 2017 was the last year they did one. So,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah,
So
because they didn't do one last year. So, yeah.
getting back to decoys a little bit now that what is your go-to spread for when you're going to target?
So, if I'm going to do a spread, I'm going to have my right and left with the most amount of decoys. And for whatever reason, this has worked for me. That there's probably some guys going to tell me that's not the way to do it, but you put about
Well, there's always those
10,
guys.
yeah, just with anything that's, you always have somebody saying, oh, that's not the right way. But anyways, it works. So you would put about 10 or so on each on your right and left. And you want
these
them
are, what kind of decoys are you using again?
So I'm using swans, sometimes white trash bags on stakes, and then I'll even do goose decoys and throw a white trash bag over the goose decoy.
Man.
So we'll do that, and and then we'll set up probably about 8 or so in front of us, and they're spread out a little bit, but they're still I don't think people realize how close swans will be next to each other. Like they will, if you see them come landing in like a group of 5 or 8, they're like almost landing on top of each other when they're like coming in and landing,
like brushing
on water.
Wings.
Yeah, they're super close. So I wouldn't say put them right up next to each other like decoy to decoy. I would say maybe put decoy here and maybe put one 6 or 8 inches away, and then put the next one maybe a foot away, and then create some space. But literally
little tight clusters.
Yeah, they're going to be like clusters like that. And then we put the ones in front of us, a lot more space, just because generally that's where we want them to come in,
Sure.
Right in front of us. It's a lot easier to hit them when they're coming right at you versus them coming across you, just because usually they're coming across you. More than likely, they're just checking you out. They're not going to commit. I mean, there have been chances I've seen where they've definitely committed, but most of the time I've seen them, they're going to come right at you, and then you're going to see their big old black feet, and they're going to land. But when they're coming across you, they usually are just still kind of checking you out, still worry. But that just usually they got their feet out just like any duck. Once they're cupped up, that's going to be your best shot. Especially with these birds, you got to hit them in the head and the neck like a turkey. If you hit it in the body, you're definitely going to probably have a chance of it getting away or spending a good while chasing that bird down. Like I had a buddy of mine, he shot a swan. He thought he hit it good, hit it in the breast. He wasn't in a boat or anything. And he chasing through water and mud after this bird. And after chasing it probably about 3+ miles, finally got it.
3 miles.
Yeah.
That thing would be going on the wall. Actually, I don't know. Because that's a lot of sweat for... That's a lot of sweat.
Oh, yeah. He was talking about how he was ready to hurl and throw up once he got it. And he said that was probably one of the hardest birds he's ever gone after.
Interesting. Very interesting. So you're using about three dozen decoys, is kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely guys that use less, which, that's fine, But I definitely think when swans are coming in peak numbers like that, the bigger of a spread you can have, the more success you're going to have.
That's my rule of thumb for everything. Just how much butt pain do you want to have to go through to set them out and pick them up?
Exactly. And, especially at least here in Utah, I'm not saying field hunting, we do have it. There's guys do it. Mostly it's private and that's it. But most of these guys that are doing public, it's all on water. You're all water.
And now the area that you're hunting down there, at least from the videos I've seen, we're not talking really deep water. We're talking knee deep, right?
Yeah, and there's, just like with any water, you can definitely get in spots that all of a sudden become chest high or deeper. Of course. But generally, the water's going to come up to your waist, and that's where you're going to be setting up.
Okay.
And it's, it's more the mud you're fighting than the actual water.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so when you go out, I mean, obviously, so you get your tag drawn. I feel like it's pretty hard then to have swan hunting buddies.
So, at least my experience, people are very willing to share information for swans. And it's
Okay,
because the season, so
it's like its
we'll
own little
say,
subculture almost.
yeah, and it's just we're very more open about it. Like on other things, when people are like, hey, where can I go to get a redhead? Like, where has people been more successful? A lot of people aren't going to say anything. They're going to be like, well, we've shot them here, we've shot them here, we've shot them here, but they're not like going to give them exact coordinates or anything. With swans, like, oh yeah, go up to the river, hunt the unit, get right on that dike, and just wait for them to come.
Do you want me to edit that part out?
No, you're totally fine. I don't think anybody's going to be upset I said that. If they are, whatever. It's so open in that way. Most people do not care. And if you look on Utah's website or the Utah Wildlife Division's website for swans, it tells you where most people get their swans, and the river is 40%.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah, I had like an internal battle there. I was like, oh man, like I've had like multiple episodes where I've talked about, protecting these places and whatnot. So
yeah, and I mean, like on our Facebook group page that I help run, like we let them communicate, and literally people are like, yeah, just go to, just wait for them to come off that rest pond that is northwest of it. And it's pretty open. I mean, I don't think I'm going to get anything bad for that. I can pull every post from Facebook that says that. So
I
feel
might
like
just
if it's
bump out. I might just bleep it out, and then we can just keep all this and show like how willing and nice you guys are, and then they can just hit you up.
yeah, that's totally fine. I don't care. But so we're pretty open about it, and it's just the swan season is so. I mean, it's not so short, but like the time between when their numbers start coming and then to where you can't hunt them anymore is a very short window. It's literally so last year our duck season opened on October 6th and went to January 19th. And swan starts the same day ducks open, but it ended, I believe, on December 4th this year, maybe December 7th, somewhere around that and that first week of December. So you're really only talking about 2 months. And I've only seen a few guys that ever get a swan in that last week of October. I've never seen anybody get a swan that first day of opening season.
Interesting. So is it like one of those things where, yeah, swan, it's swan season, but you're still going out for ducks, and then you really start. Hey, I think tomorrow we should go out and get some swan. We should go try for our swans.
Oh, definitely, and that's exactly how it is. It's like you kind of are always looking, but then it's like, hey guys, it's the last day of October. We need to start, getting serious and looking.
Sure. Well, very, very interesting. So, when you shoot these birds, right?
Mm-hmm.
I imagine that it is quite a thud into the water, and that's a lot of bird coming down. What'd you say? It was like close to 20 pounds, right?
Yeah.
So I know. So people will tell you all the time that there are, I shot a 20-pound goose. Well,
Oh yeah.
I'll tell you right now, the only place you're finding a 20-pound goose is the market. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
you're definitely. Yeah, your swan is going to be dang close to 20 pounds, if not 20 pounds, and that splash it makes if you hit it. So my first swan, I had to shoot it 6 times,
Whoa.
and that's how tough these birds are. My second one, I only had to shoot it 3 times, and my first one was a juvenile. So I'll be honest, I was a little disappointed, just because I don't want to shoot the younger one, but it was my first one, so I was happy I got my tag. My second one was so much better. It had the yellow lure, it had a good bill size, and it was about 6 foot wingspan and about a 20-pound bird, which is perfect adult tundra swan.
Right.
But this one guy in my group when we went out, this was probably one of the bigger tundra swans I've seen, and he hit it with one shot, or he missed on the first, hit it on the second, hit it right in the neck and head. It came down, but it was still alive. Like we see that's very common with swans. Like you can hit them and they'll come down, but you are still having, and I know you've talked about on your show, some people say you shouldn't water swat and stuff, but with swans you have to, like, or it will get away. Like,
yeah, no, I mean, I think after you shoot the bird out of the air, like, water swat away. But are you saying that you wait for him to put down and then you shoot him?
No, we generally shoot them on the fly. Like we're shooting them. So in my opinion, it's just the best, most accurate and ethical shot is to hit them right as their feet are about to touch water.
Oh yeah.
So whether your judgment is, okay, their feet are 3 feet from the water, hit them, something like that.
Sure.
But that's when you want to hit them because, they're generally going to be cupped up. They're slowing down. It's going to be hard for them to like get their wings going again to get out of there if you miss.
Right.
So that's what I mean. But sometimes, I've seen guys hit them in the body. They hit them second time in the butt. They come down, and those birds are traveling. They're swimming away, and you have guys getting after them with their boat. Have to turn off their boat because you can't, shoot any game birds if your boat's moving. Have to turn off your boat. And then wait until your boat, comes to a complete stop, basically, and then shoot them again,
Yeah.
And
what a slippery slope, by the way. With boats underway, because you got a bird and you kill it, or you shoot it, I should say, and the thing's wounded, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, like, I'm thinking, by any means necessary, end the suffering. And harvest that bird so it doesn't go to wanton waste or anything like that. But then at the same time, all forward, momentum from being underway needs to be ceased. And then that's, it's an interesting conversation, but
it's definitely, it's a challenge for that person first off because, they got this bird down. They're already dealing with the dilemma of like, dang it, the bird didn't die like I thought it was going to. And now they're in pursuit of it. And then if they're in the boat, they're having to wait for the boat to completely stop because in legality ethics, the boat needs to be stopped. And then trying to shoot that bird and be like, I don't want to lose this bird because I'm not going to sleep tonight if I end up losing this bird too. So it's hard on people. I've been lucky enough where I only had that happen on my second bird. And that definitely was stressful because here in Utah, and I do believe in those other states where swan hunts go on, when you harvest one, you actually have to either bring the whole bird in or just its head in. And the wildlife officers have to measure the bill. You have to tell them where you got it. They check the measurement for the bill. They see if it has the yellow lure. And then they ask you how satisfied you were with the hunt. And you have to do that within 72 hours of harvesting that bird.
Wait. What was the last part?
You have to report that within 72 hours.
Like how satisfied you were with the hunt?
Yeah, they ask you how satisfied you were with the hunt.
Okay.
And that one's personally just for them. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
I'm just happy to be out there. If I get one, that's just a cherry on top. But they do want, at least here in Utah, they want to know. It seems to me
like it's, this is equivalent to whitetail hunting.
Yeah, depending on your regulations, to even apply for this swan tag, you have to do a quiz. You have to do an orientation course and pass this quiz.
To make sure you're not shooting a whooping crane.
Shooting anything because even though, yes, in Utah, if you harvest a trumpeter swan, you're not going to go jail. You're within the law. They want you to target the tundra swan.
Sure. Now, is that the case everywhere, or do you know?
So here in in Utah and Nevada, it's totally fine. But I do know in other states, you definitely will be fined and could potentially have criminal charges. Because I believe the FWS opened it up back in 2017. This type of verbiage that would allow trumpeter swan hunting in a lot of states, not just in the states, but really what they were looking for was to see, hey, Utah and Nevada have been doing it this way. Could we do it this way as well, so that people who do accidentally harvest it, because they are hard to distinguish in flight unless you really know your birds. And even, you always get that guy that's super excited, just sees white bird, shoots, thinks it's what it is, and then ends up being a trumpeter swan. Well, in those states where it's not okay, you're definitely going to get a fine. They're going to take your bird, and you could go to court. But I'm not sure where that has ended in those states, but I do know in Utah and Nevada, if you do get a trumpeter, you're fine.
Huh. Interesting.
So, yeah.
So how many swans have you harvested?
So 3 total.
You're talking like 60 pounds of bird right there.
Yeah.
What have you done with them in the past?
So my middle one, I did get mounted. I did take it in and have it done. And a big one that everybody always does with the swans is they always want to do it flying, which totally awesome mount. My wife was not happy with that one. So
it takes up like 10 foot of the house.
Yeah, it takes up a ton of room. If you don't have like vaulted ceilings or like a good place to put it, it would be like trying to put a bull elk, like a 350 class bull elk, in above your fireplace when your ceilings are only 7 feet tall. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, these swans, just even the tundra swans, they just take up a ton of space. So mine is just like in a standing position on like a kind of a wood display.
It sounds like, it sounds like you had one mounted in a flying pose.
No, I haven't. I wanted to do one that way, but my wife kind of axed that one.
Sure.
So, but my other 2, so my first one, I was very,
you said that was a juvenile, right?
So yeah, my first one was a juvenile, which most people say if you could shoot a juvenile, yeah, they look cool mounted, but just eat them. You can always get a better one, and I'm pretty picky so be honest, my swan is the only bird I've ever mounted. And it's only because the other birds I've gotten, I've always felt like, I always feel like I could do better. So I just don't get one mounted.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know some people are like, that's trophy hunting, but it's like, no, I just really want to have true value in something I'm going to spend money on and get this beautiful duck done.
I think the best way to duck hunt is trophy hunting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trophy hunting and meat hunting, I guess. But yeah, like, I had my buddy Tony on, and that's what he's pretty much just a trophy duck hunter. Like, he goes out and he waits and, like, finds the right one. So, but yeah, continue. Sorry. What does swan taste like?
So, a lot of people probably will have this hard to believe. It's very similar to geese. Like, it's very similar to goose meat. Like, it's not really noticeably different. At least in my opinion.
Yeah, that's not very hard for me to believe. I was thinking that was going to be the case.
I will say, I do think if it's a little bit more temperament, like duck, where I feel like, and this is also my opinion, so people are probably saying I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I feel like duck, you have to be a little bit more careful about the internal temperature when you're cooking it, where geese, you can probably, I feel you can go a little bit longer if you feel like you need to. Where swan, you definitely, like, if you go over, it's that saying, like, how do you eat carp? Put it on a shingle, throw away the carp, eat the shingle. Like, it's.
Okay, so you're saying, I think what you're saying is like, yeah, we don't overcook our waterfowl.
Yeah, don't. I think if anybody, like, has ever experienced overcooked steak and then experienced overcooked waterfowl, you would rather eat that overcooked steak than that waterfowl because it can be so bad sometimes.
I think what it comes from, and what a strange, dichotomy that it is. So, you go out hunting waterfowl for some of the first time, and your boys, they throw you some duck meat, and they're like, all right, go have fun. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, duck, a lot like chicken, right? Yeah, it should be like, it's chicken. It's fowl. It's a bird. Okay, so I got to make sure I get this thing cooked. And plus it's wild, so it's dirty. Who knows where it came from? Both of those things completely false.
Yep.
Yeah, that thing is not dirty. Like, the chicken that you bought from the store was like never not touching another chicken. That's dirty.
Right.
Like, these things were living out on God's land. Like, they're good to go. Like,
oh yeah, I totally agree. And like one of the big things I tell people, so everything you know about poultry, because waterfowl would technically fall in poultry,
yep.
Throw it out the window when it comes to waterfowl. You cook that sucker like it's beef. If you push your palm and the meat feels like your palm there, by your thumb, it's done. And that means that meat's coming off and it's medium rare and you eat it like that. If you're eating it further than that, you messed up.
My wife she hated eating duck. And then I grabbed some teal this season after I talked to my buddy AJ Nesty from Huntitarian. And he's like, hey, man, 2 minutes on one side, 1 minute on the other. And I was like, really? Okay, we'll see. Did that. I kid you not. There was like leftover prime rib in my fridge that got ate after the rest of that teal did. Like,
oh, yeah. And it's crazy how much of, like, how if you do cook it within those correct requirements, how good it really is compared to, store-bought chicken or store-bought steak. Like, I'm not saying I'm going to turn down a steak, but I definitely, like, if I have that waterfowl meat, I'm going to eat that waterfowl meat.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'll tell you right now, of all the hunting I did, this year, I have maybe like 2 geese left. Is all I have left, because we were just, every time we'd get some, we'd eat it.
Oh yeah.
Couldn't, and now I'm sitting here, I'm looking, that's a long summer with no waterfowl.
And it's always disappointing when you have that last piece and you're like, well, at least I have something to look forward to in 6 months or 4 months or whatever,
Exactly.
So
what's your favorite swan recipe?
So I like to marinate mine in a brine. So I should say a brine. And I actually use a very similar turkey brine for my swan brine.
Okay.
And I'll just cut out the breast, and this is how I did mine. So I did have to reduce the ingredients, but just use a simple turkey brine that you can find on Google and just marinate it or brine it for 24 hours. Once you get that blood out, pat it dry, and then season it with any seasoning you like. I use this chili lime seasoning on my juvenile one, and just rubbed it on both sides and then grilled it about 1:30 on one side and I think 2 minutes on the other, because those swan breasts, they're going to be very close in size to a turkey breast. So it's a lot of meat. On my third one, I did basically the exact same thing, but I do plan on, because that was 2 years ago, so this year I will hopefully draw a tag. I want to do one where I saw a guy, he plucked all the feathers off swan, cut off the wings, the feet, the head, and Traegered it. He put the whole swan in a Traeger. Yeah. And he had pictures of him cutting it, and it looked so good. Like he smoked it. It looked so good. So that's on the list of what I want to do next. And I'll probably try and find that guy again, or find somebody who's done it. Just make sure I follow it. But I don't think, as long as you season it and then smoke it and take care of it, just like with any game, you get it in the ice as soon as possible or cool it down as soon as possible. I don't think it's going to turn out bad. So I know some guys will. There was one guy, I think he told me he brines his swan breast in 7-Up.
Get it kind of sweet or something?
Yeah, and then he sees it and he said that is so good. Just do it in 7-Up. And I've never done it that way. I've just usually done the turkey brine and then just get the blood out. And that seems to be what works for a lot of people who've never tried waterfowl. They've tried them like, oh, it wasn't good.
Right.
If you brine it and then cook it, they seem to enjoy it a lot better. For whatever reason, getting the blood out of it makes it a lot better.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I've gone through a lot of trial and error with trying to get my wife to eat waterfowl. So to the point where anytime we have tacos or or anything like that, you could sneak some sort of foreign meat into it. She always asks me. She says, "Now, what kind of meat is this?" And I usually have to lie to her to get her to try something new. So.
Yeah, no, I actually have a funny story. So this was with elk. So I used some ground elk meat and put it in chili. And I gave it to my wife, didn't say anything. She ate it. And she was like, "What's in this?" And I was like, "It's just beef." And she was like, "No, what's in this?" I was like, "It's elk." And she was like, "I'm not eating it." And like, she stopped eating it for whatever reason. She knew right off the bat. I couldn't believe it because if you would have given me a bowl with elk meat in it or something I would have not known the difference. I couldn't believe it. So she has at least my wife has a very sensitive palate to wild game. She's most of the time, no. Every now and then she will do some some duck breast.
Yeah.
But it's got to be cooked right. I mean, it's usually just me and my father-in-law who are eating the game meat. So
our goal by the end of 2019, and when I say I just convinced my wife of this after like a month of kind of arguing about it back and forth. I said, we're not going to eat anything that we did not meet alive. Like if we didn't know that thing when it was alive, and I mean, obviously I'm only talking about meat. If we didn't know it when it was alive, we're not going to eat it. Like, so like nothing store-bought, stuff that's been dead already. Like, the cow.
Oh, yeah.
The cow, like, coming from like a local farm or something like that. So
you're like, I want you to meet the pig that we are going to eat.
Well, just like, I think then that's kind of a, what it is.
Maybe that's a drastic, but it's very similar, right?
Right. Like maybe when I'm saying like meet the cow, like no, we're gonna get it from like a local, rancher.
Like a local.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not buying beef from like Tyson or anything like that.
Right.
So like to take ourselves out of the meat market as much as possible.
Yeah, and like just getting a little off topic, like that argument always like kills me when I see people like, I can't believe you would, kill such a beautiful animal. It was just living its life. And it's like, you realize you eat animals that are like in cages and living on top of each other, defecating on top of each other.
I love deer, and I love ducks and stuff. But who I feel bad for? Cows, man. Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a rough life. Well, maybe not too rough, but like, yeah, I mean, their whole purpose, like the deer, its whole purpose is to survive and not wind up on my dinner table. The cow, its whole purpose is to wind up on my dinner table,
Yeah, basically. And so it's like that argument always kind of kills me because it's just like what I'm doing is, in my opinion at least, people can disagree and that's totally fine, is me going out and pursuing this animal that's living free and not in a cage or not being raised to be killed is such a far better like reward for me because I'm doing everything in my power to be ethical where I could potentially buy it from these factories that definitely aren't treating these animals the best.
Right. So I've been fortunate in that most of the beef that I've consumed in my life has been from a family member, raising the cow and taking it to the butcher. So I've been fortunate in that fact.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just crazy how just buying local meat is just so different from just buying that box store meat,
Yeah, yeah.
like of, the treatment. But anyways, so yeah, swan hunting is,
Yeah. What were we talking about? Swan hunting?
yeah, swan hunting is definitely a one of a kind. I know a lot of people, and I disagree with people who say this too, that, oh, swans are just like snow geese, they're not hard to hunt at all. And really, like, swans are so aware of their surroundings that, like, you really got to do a good job of staying still, making sure you have that right decoy strategy, and you will get them in. You got to work for them just like you do with any of the ducks. But I know some people say snow geese are super easy, but it's like, if they're so easy, why is it that everybody has to shoot them 70 yards up? Why aren't they always decoying in? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, swans are, I recommend anybody, if you ever can, you have the funds, the financial stability, or you live in a state that allows swan hunting, give it a try at once. I definitely can tell you it'll change your mind. You either continue to do it, or you'll understand why it's, such a great hunt.
Well, awesome. Well, Nick, to get you out the door here, I know that you came up with this list already. What's the 10 rules of hunting swans?
The 10 rules?
Okay, maybe not 10 rules, but like the parting knowledge here, the parting shot. Like, what's your, little pieces of advice I'm about to go, plan and then execute my my swan hunt? What's some, I would consider you semi-expert at this now. You've killed 3 swans compared to most. I don't think I know anybody personally that has killed a swan.
So I think 5 things I can definitely think of off the top of my head is use ammo you're comfortable with. You don't have to go big. So if that means you're comfortable always shooting 3-inch 2-shot, use it. The second thing is scout. Just, bring those binoculars and do what you need to do to find them. Third thing, just be patient. You eventually will get on them. You'll get an opportunity. I think Utah, like, we are pretty close to almost always 90% or more success rate. I could be a little bit off on that, but it's a very good success rate here. 4, just, sometimes you got to sacrifice doing the swans and not doing the ducks. You definitely can shoot ducks sometimes when out swan hunting, but sometimes you don't need to shoot at that flock of ducks that are coming. Wait for the swans. And once you get your swan, then duck hunt. Obviously if there's still time. And then number 5, hunt in the evenings. For whatever reason, the evenings have always been better for me.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, perfect, man. I appreciate you coming on and giving the listeners some knowledge about swan hunting, and it was definitely eye-opening for myself as well. As soon as you posed that question in the group, I said, he's got a great point. It's like no one talks about swan hunting.
You always hear people talk about divers, canvasbacks. You hear them talking about pintails, or you hear them talking about sea ducks. And I'm like, where's the swan love?
There's no swan love.
No, it's just, but I'm hoping, this will get some people more interested about potentially in their future, or if they do live in a state, they'll be like, I'll give it a try, see if I like it or not.
And if they're really interested in it, they can get on the Foul Front Waterfowl podcast group on Facebook and hit you up, right?
Yep. More than happy to answer any questions or, help as best I can.
All right. Well, hey, Nick, I appreciate it. This was fun. We'll have to have you on again. That definitely to talk about some desert ducks down there in Utah, which is a close thing to my heart. But I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about hunting on the Salt Lake.
Yeah, I'd be definitely happy to come back on and or do another podcast and talk a little bit more about hunting in Utah and what it's like. But yeah, just let me know when you want to do it, Ben, and we can do it. It could be, when next season comes around or whenever we have time again.
Yeah, yeah. Well, my one question I do have right now is do you guys mostly shore hunting, or are there any like layout boat hunters out there?
So we do actually have quite a few people that use layout boats. I have not seen anybody use a layout boat for swan hunting, but definitely for ducks and divers. Like a lot of guys use the layouts for the divers, which is understandable. It's a great tactic for the divers.
Yeah, I'm trying to plan out my my kind of exotic hunts for next year, and I'm trying to go on a layout boat hunt next year. So I was just trying to see if Salt Lake was an option for that. So
it is, and I'll one group or outfit, if you did come here and you wanted to go like on an airboat and stuff, Chad and Rob over at Fried Feathers Outfitters in Utah, they do a layout type hunt on the Great Salt Lake. So you're on salt water they use duck silhouettes, and you lay in like a jet sled because the water's not deep at all. So like it literally goes up to maybe your knee, and they get after the teal like crazy out there, and definitely some divers as well.
Yeah, okay, cool.
So just so that's always a great, they're great guys. I know there's other outfitters, but they are top-notch outfitters. If anybody ever wanted to do a hunt in Utah.
Nice. They got some good promo there. So
yeah. No, they're great guys over there. So definitely. The only other thing I wanted to add, sorry, before the show ended, we didn't really talk about mute swans, which mute swans, at least what we've been told here in Utah by federal wildlife officer, is to shoot them, like regardless. You don't need a tag.
What?
They've told us that mute swans shoot them.
Really?
Because they're non-native.
Yeah, they're an invasive species.
Yep. So they've told us. I've never seen somebody get one. I've never seen one out in the wild. Yeah. But we have been told to shoot them.
Yeah, that's not something that's publicized a lot.
No, and I did kind of want to add that because I think some people feel like, well, what about mute swans? Can you hunt those? And it's like, well, really, that swan is more native to like Europe and over there, not to North America. We definitely have a small population of them here, but yeah, from what we've been told, definitely shoot them.
All right.
That's in Utah. I don't want to tell anybody wrong information. That might be different in other states, but in Utah,
consult your local laws first. For
sure. For sure.
Hey Nick, I appreciate it. This was great talk. I had a lot of fun on this episode, and maybe I'll make my way out to old Salt Lake City.
Yep. Okay, heck yeah, man! And we'll go on a 40-minute hour drive, and we can get a hunt together if you ever come out this way.
All right, man. Sounds good. Same to you back here in Kansas, by the way.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. So, all right, Nick. Have a good one.
You too. Thanks, Ben.
Yep. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Foul Front Waterfowl Podcast. Please come join us on our Facebook group, the Foul Front Waterfowl Podcast group, where you can connect with a good group of hunters, because we're all in this together. We need to act like it so that hopefully our great grandkids will be hunting ducks over our favorite public lands. We also ask that you go ahead and give us a written review on iTunes and give us 5 stars if you think we deserve it. And we really do want to hear back from you so that we can give you the best possible content. And if you get in on that Facebook group, you can get in there and you can ask questions and you can tell us what you want to hear next, or you can tell us what you don't like. And we'll be sure to tailor things to our listeners. So, all right. Stay safe out there, and we will see you next week.